So, Dan, tell me a little bit about the beginnings of Saltspring Seeds. How did that take place?
Well, the beginning happened before the beginning, basically, because it was in my bones and in my blood. And when I was a little kid, I loved the outdoors so much and just wanted to be outside all the time. And I even had a- an incredible experience one day just out in the woods where everything was illuminated and it was sort of a super consciousness kind of thing. But one of the most amazing experiences when I was living in the suburbs of Montreal, and one day the postman comes to the door and he brings a seed catalog, Stokes seed catalog. Stokes are still in business after all this time, but when I put the catalog in my hands, I knew somehow that I was wrapped up some way, somehow, sometime in whatever that catalog was saying. It was a seed catalog. They still have pretty much the same format, but I was transported into a weird state of knowingness that somehow I was involved with this. And this was when I was just 12 years old or something. Pointing out to the beginning of the beginning, it was something was going on way back. And I was trying to convince my parents to let me dig up some of our back lawn and plant stuff. I really wanted to grow things, and they didn't let me, and they didn't let me. And a few years went by, and then finally they said, "Okay, um, you could have that patch under the back porch where the kitchen was. There's a stairway going up to the kitchen, and it was only 2 feet by 3 feet." And I planted some carrots and I planted some potatoes, and they grew, and it blew everybody's mind. My aunt didn't know that carrots didn't grow on trees. She was quite surprised to see carrots coming out of the ground, and that was the beginning of growing. But really, I couldn't indulge my growing inclinations until I moved to Saltspring Island, which was way much later, around 1976. And I started having gardens then, and one thing led to another and to another.
But tell me this, how did that experience of beginning to grow gardens on Salt Spring translate into a preoccupation with seeds?
Well, there were just a few years of those little gardens, and then I had the opportunity, because a friend invited me, to he was basically a sheep farmer, and there was beautiful land there. He invited me to come there and grow stuff. So I started growing stuff on a much larger scale. And then I discovered that there were amazing things that most seed catalogs never had, and that were really basic foods. I started pursuing them, and it was basically beans and grains, all different kinds of beans and grains. And I realized that we really didn't have the scoop on them. Most people didn't know how easy they were to grow and harvest, and most people hadn't had the experience of eating relatively fresh beans and grains, especially the beans, because if you eat your own homegrown beans, they're way easier on your system. They're easier to digest. They soak up water much faster, and it's a different eating experience. And I realized that the stuff they had in the stores was old, and that's why people didn't like beans so much. And then I discovered, I think I was the first person in Canada to grow quinoa, and I put that in my very first catalog along with amaranth, two high protein crops that really well known in other places around the globe, especially in Central and South America, and high, like really high in vitamins and minerals. And then there were soybeans, also super high protein, fat crop. And I realized that they started to talk about genetically modifying them, and I realized that they took such an amazing crop because they realized they could feed it to animals and turn it into all kinds of other foods. And my thing was, there was an in-between level of not just a small scale garden and not just corporate agriculture, but these could be grown in a decent farm and easily and provide lots of food to lots of people and the highest quality food. So that was the beginning. I put all that together and put out a little catalog, a one-page catalog with just 12 things in it. Mostly the beans, some of my favorite beans and soybeans and quinoa and amaranth. And that started me on my way. Then I started writing about it all and got to appear in various publications. And then books came and I just kept on with it. And to this day, I'm still pretty much trying to promote the same things after all these years.
You know, Dan, I remember conflating with you around the soybean story because I had an interest in growing soy, and you and I talked, and I forget how it went, but I think we tried to explore with Canada's agriculture ministry about growing soy, and we got poo-pooed, and they said, "Oh no, it's too far north."
The story of that was we had somebody whose name I forget now who was helping us out, who was a government person, and he was on board with us and really realized the potential. And then I had also by that time given soybeans to some of my friends to confirm that they grew easily and that they were great. And I had all this backing, and I had this guy, and we took it to the there was a federal provincial grant, and we had great backing, and it looked like we were going to get the grant. And what happened was that was when kiwis all of a sudden came in, and they thought, oh, this is a far better bet than soybeans because, well, officially they told me in the end there were not enough heat units to grow soybeans, even though I had all the evidence that they're indeed easy to grow and not a big deal. And you were there at the beginning.
I was. Yes, I remember this chapter. Oh, so you've told the story a little bit about the unfolding, how, with from very humble beginnings, it starts to scale up in actually a very organic way. I don't know the extent to which for you it was an important part of the story, but there's a politics of seeds that's taking place.
Hard to sum that up. It's a really big topic. Um, Mostly seeds are something that are corporate owned, and their whole slant on it is how to make money. So they hybridize seeds and they patent seeds and they genetically modify seeds. And then there's a profit margin. There's a whole other area of small scale seed growers who are promoting open pollinated seeds that are not hybridized. And interestingly enough, there's not that many people still in North America who are just keen on seeds, who love seeds and want to follow that path. There's endless numbers of gardeners and small scale growers and large scale growers and every imaginable kind of growing food, but not much in the way of seeds. And to this day, if you really research what small scale seed growers there are, there's only about 2 dozen in the whole of Canada. Factor in the fact that there's 40 million people in Canada. That's a vocation for less than one in a million. And yet it's so basic, it's so important. If you don't have seeds, you can't grow these foods. If you don't have seeds, you can't eat, basically. And so the whole world of big money has taken that on, but that's not speaking very much to resilience and self-reliance. If it's a corporate seed company, they're going to source their seed from one place on the planet where it's best to grow that particular broccoli, and then they ship it to all these other big seed companies, and it's all basically the same seed. But uh, where's the diversity? And you know, around the world, it's been diversity that's been important forever and ever because if you have any kind of climate crisis or anything from floods to too much heat, too much cold, then some things are going to survive and others are not. And in any season, you're not going to know which. So it's really good to have diversity of food crops. And you're not going to get that from corporate agriculture.
And it's the diversity of the gene pool fundamentally, isn't it?
Totally, yeah.
So that, see, I wanted to talk a little more in detail about this because I've learned in working with young people that nobody's telling them these things. That is, this idea that, okay, if you don't have a diverse gene pool, then there's no flexibility in responding to changing conditions, as you've suggested, not to speak of a parasite.
Yeah, you say it so clearly, and you don't get that in school. But I should add a happy note because this year I have a bunch of young people who are just in their teens that are working for me, and they're keen. And I'm excited that there's up and coming young people that are turned on to what seeds are all about.
Oh, I'm so excited to hear that. And I know that's the case. I mean, I find when I do talk to young people about these kinds of issues, they're so eager to learn, but they're not getting the information. And in that spirit, I wanted to go back to the implication of hybridizing seeds because I think it's so important in relation to what you do. I mean, many people don't know what that means is that if you grow a tomato plant and try and plant the seeds, nothing happens.
Something happens, but it doesn't come true. Um, the basic concept of hybridizing is the company that's doing that controls both parent lines, and it's good for the first year. But then, if you save the seed from that, they don't come true, and you can get any weird thing, and it's not really what you're looking for. Whereas open pollinated seeds will come true, and they create these hybrids because that's how they make money.
So that's the scale issue, right? Because then you have to go back and buy more tomato seeds from them.
Precisely.
Talk to me a little bit about the gentle art of collecting seeds and what that's like and how you go about it.
Well, it is a gentle art. And let's face it, non-industrialized countries around the world forever and ever have saved seeds with very, very simple technology, usually no electricity, just using animals or using hands. And I'm still doing that with basic screens. I have one piece of technology which, you've probably seen lots of photos of winnowing where people are throwing the seeds up in the air and the wind blows the shaft away. And I've sped that up with a little air compressor that has a blow nozzle attachment. And the seeds are always heavier and you can blow the shaft away. But basically, forever, for 10,000 years on the planet, the process of seed saving has been something handed on just as a matter of course from one generation to the next. And it is a gentle thing and it's a beautiful thing and it's so rewarding. And one of the most amazing things about it is you really can see when you do that, that nature, in fact, is infinitely abundant. It produces so much seed from so few plants. And the paradigm in the world these days is all about scarcity, and that's again how, in a capitalist economy, people try and create this thing about scarcity so that people are fearful and they can make the money. But really, and this is what I try to do with my seed company, I put so many seeds in a packet because nature gives me so many seeds. It's not a problem.
And so that's kind of like that's the connection I wanted to hear and to make for those who don't haven't seen this happen. So you grow the plants, and then you take this extra step of collecting the seeds from the plants as well as eating them.
Precisely. Yeah. It's just that further step. And
Yep.
that's where most food growers don't go. And that's where you have to learn about how to do that. And it's so basic, but it's partly timing. You want to, if something goes to seed, that's action central for a lot of different bugs. And you want to get the seed before they start making their homes in a nice, cozy seed head. And then everything hatches out, and then you got all the progeny of whatever it is. So you have to know about timing and you have to make sure that for your location, the plants will actually have enough time to go to seed and make good seed. In some places in the world, that's not an issue because you have a long, long growing season and it's not a problem for getting good seed. But in a place like ours, you have to probably go for early maturing varieties.
So in the case of Saltspring seeds, they are not hybrid seeds. So if I buy tomato seeds from you and grow a tomato plant and I harvest the seeds and plant them, they'll grow another tomato plant.
Exactly. And that's what we try to encourage people to do, to save their own seed. And I have a seed saving book, and I have all the information on our saltspringseeds.com website about seed saving. And um, it sounds like that could be defeating our very purpose, but it doesn't work like that because there's always more growers and there's always people who don't save their seeds for one reason or another. And to encourage people to save seed is to keep the whole thing going round and round in a beautiful, abundant, and resilient way. I've never worried about loss of business telling people to save their own seed.
Well, and as a matter of fact, that hasn't been the story of Salt Spring Seeds. As more and more people have found out about you, more people get in touch from as I understood from talking to you all over the world.
It's amazing. And you got me on a day when that is so, so true because we've been going. I've had a friend in here who just went to mail all the seeds that we packaged up today to people across Canada. And we are so busy. It's just crazy. But I should say there's one thing to mention because we're getting ready to go for yet what's called another Seedy Saturday this weekend, and these are community seed extravaganzas that
Yes.
local seed growers and seed savers come together and um, the seed companies sell their seeds, and it's also about composting and environmental protection and all that kind of stuff. But mainly, it's small seed companies getting together one day a year called Seedy Saturday or Seedy Sunday, and it's usually in a community hall or a gym, and it's very exciting. And it's especially big on the coast here. Like, it's last weekend was Courtney, next weekend, this Saturday is Cobble Hill, then it's Duncan, and on for the whole, it's about 3 months of these Seedy Saturdays. And we started it here. The first one was in Van Dusen, in Vancouver, way back about 30 years ago. And now they're all over Canada, and there's over 100 different Seedy Saturdays. So there's a grassroots seed saving, whatever you want to call it, going on.
So I imagine that if people wanted to learn, that would be another opportunity.
It is that usually there's workshops along with the actual people buying seeds at seed tables.
Dan, just to reiterate for those who might be interested to learn, you have a book, and you also have an information on your website that people can use.
It's probably easiest to just go to the website. It's www.saltspringsseeds.com. And right at the top, as you open it up, there's a thing on saving seeds. And that has all the information that's in my little seed saving book. So if
Yes.
you want to buy the book to have in your hand, please do. It's it's been a best-selling book for a long time now, but it's all there for free on the website.
Speaking of new varieties, where do you discover new varieties that you add to your offerings?
Through the other small seed companies across the country, but also almost every year, yeah, I'd say without exception, probably somebody's always sending me seeds that their grandma grew and that they've kept going, or that their uncle from Australia sent them 20 years ago, and they come with a story. And um, let's face it, there's lots and lots of gardeners, and they have lots of these heirlooms, and many's the time they've been growing them but can't do it anymore, and they know about Salt Spring Seeds, so they say, "Hey, I have this. amazing cabbage, and they'll send me some seeds and then I'll try it out. So that happens from my own research, but also from stuff that just comes to me.
It sounds like this is a story of abundance rather than scarcity, but also a story of relationship among people who share this passion.
It is, and that's one of the most beautiful things about it.
For me, during these strange times, where my hope is located for the future is in these communities that form, among us around projects like seeds that are so essential to our well-being in the end.
Yeah, I'm on definitely the same page as you about that. And this year, I have a pretty large farm here, and there's 3 or 4 good acres of growing space, and I'm opening it up to a lot more people, mainly in the neighborhood. I have these young people working for me, and they're going to get food out of that as well as money for working for me. But I hope to engage all the people on my road and around here in this valley to come. They're welcome to have a plot, or they're welcome to take some of my beets and give me back some pickled beets, or, you know, it's all about relationship and neighborhood and keeping the concept of place going.
Well, it sounds like you're moving towards the old commons.
Yes. Yeah, that's a good way of putting it, truly. It all comes down to it, it's our connection to the earth is the most important thing going.
Yes.
And that's why things are as bad as they are because we've lost that connection in so many places. And we just forget that we owe everything to the earth, not to these devices.
Yes. Dan, share us as we wind this down. Tell me two things. First of all, what's your favorite seed of all time and that has some special characteristics that are either amusing or inspiring or even holy?
Well, there's a lot, as you can imagine, but right
Yeah.
away you got me thinking of when I was in Ethiopia in '93. A farmer in a field gave me 2 heads of wheat, and he said, "You should try these because we cook these up whole, and they're a wonderful cooked whole grain. They make great flour for bread too, but take these back to Canada with you and see what happens." And I did. And I grew them out and multiplied them and multiplied them. And amazingly enough, I was familiar with wheat, and I knew that so much of the breeding work in Canada was to get wheat to mature a little bit earlier. And they
Yeah.
had variety after variety. Canada's known as the breadbasket of planet practically. And um, this wheat was 2 weeks earlier than any Canadian wheat I had ever heard of. And that was astounding. And then um, I connected with a group in California called the Whole Grain Connection, and they started growing that wheat on a commercial scale on hundreds of acres. Actually, it was successful. It's still going, but that's I called it blue tinge Ethiopian wheat, and I'm still growing that. I'm still really excited to have it. But from 2 little heads of wheat to multiply to the point where it got to be hundreds, maybe thousands of acres in California, and it's in seed catalogs now, but you never know what little seed passed on from one person to another is going to evolve into. But another one, though, is my Ethiopian barley, another Ethiopian collection, and that one I got from the U.S. Seed Savers Exchange way, way back, like in the mid 80s. And when I went to Ethiopia for that time in '93, I was in their gene bank and I told them that I had Ethiopian barley. And they thought that was the funniest thing they had ever heard of because when they stopped laughing, they took me into the room beside where they had all these wheat stored. And they said, "Well, you're calling this, it was barley we were talking about here. They said they had over 6,000 different kinds of barley in the storage right beside where we were. And there I was telling them that I had Ethiopian barley. And that really was when the lights went on in my head about what diversity could mean, because they had barleys for all different kinds of occasions. So those are two of my biggest ones.
Dan, as we close this off, um, is there something that I haven't asked and you feel is really an important part of the story in some way and is still in the air and that you'd like to speak to?
Maybe to reiterate what I said before, because there are so few seed growers, and it's a good vocation. And if anybody's listening to this who wants to think about making a wonderful living, think about growing seeds for seed and becoming a seed grower and creating a seed company. Because if there's only one in a million, less than one in a million seed growers in the entire country, there's surely scope for more people to make a beautiful living growing seeds.
Well, it certainly fits with what I'm going to be saying to Canadians. Well, I am saying to Canadians, now is the time for us to grow our own food and make our own things, if there was ever such a time.
A beautiful way to end it. Yeah, totally, totally agree.